To begin making your garden stake on Tinkercad, you'll want to use the link that was emailed to you. If you don't use that link, unfortunately, I'm unable to see the design that you have created. So it's important that you use that exact link, and it will take you to a page that looks just like the one right now on the screen. So it'll say Garden Stakes, March 23rd was the date of the program, and you'll want to select Join with a nickname. I emailed everyone a nickname as well. It was a combination of your first, maybe some letters of your last name, and then some numbers. So you'll type that in and then select That's Me. Once you do that, you'll want to create a new design. And then you will see a blank work plane. I'm going to show you what some of the tools on the screen can do. That way you can be creative and experiment when you're creating your garden stake. So first, to name the design, in the top left corner, you'll want to click on the name that shows up on the screen. So this one says, unique combination of words. You'll want to delete that and then type your first name, first initial of your last name, underscore or dash, and then the color that you would like the garden stake printed. So we have three options right now. There's blue, silver, or there's a dark pink, almost magenta. So you can put, I'm going to put blue. You can also put silver or either magenta or pink. And then you can click anywhere on the screen to save that. So that way, when I go into the class, I can look at your name and I'll know what color to print it. And then I'll be able to access your design. So looking at the plane again, you'll notice on the left, there's this box that says top front. This is how you can actually change the view of the plane. So if you needed to look underneath or on the sides, you could change that. That's great for 3D printing because you'll want to make sure that there's no holes or gaps anywhere. So that's why you'll want that full view. If you ever get kind of lost and you need to go back to where you started, you can hit the home button and I'll set that back to the beginning for you. You can also zoom in and zoom out using the keys on the left side of the screen. If your mouse has a scroll in the middle, you can also use that to zoom in and out. At the top left, it's not an option right now because I don't have any objects on the plane, but you can also select the undo and redo button if you'd like to go back. If you'd like to delete something, you can select the trash can once that object is selected. If you select the object, you can also hit the backspace button or delete on the keyboard as well. So to add a shape, on the right-hand side, you will see some basic shapes available. So I'm going to add the square as an example and drop that onto the plane. So you just click, you drag, and then you drop. And it'll sit flat on the plane like that. There's a couple options to change the size of the shape. So using these black squares on the shape, if you hold and then drag it, it'll change that side of the shape. So this will make it longer. The white squares will increase the height and the width. So this one on the side. If you hit the diagonal white squares like I'm doing right now, you'll change the entire shape at once. So that's just a basic overview of how to change the sizes. If you look underneath the object, you'll see the arrows. If you hover the mouse over that, you can click on the arrows and hold it, and then you can kind of rotate the object around. So say you want it to look like a diamond, you could rotate it like this. There's also arrows on the top. So if you hover over, you'll see the different options. The last thing that you'll notice is a cone at the top. This will pick the object off of the plane and kind of float it in the air. And you'll see the numbers changing as I'm lifting the object up. So I'm going to put it back down. And when it's flat, you'll see that the lines, it lines up there at the bottom and it'll say 0. So 0 is back on the work plane, so that's where you'll want to be when you're creating your stake. You can also stack objects. So like I have this circle, I'm going to stack it on top. You'll want to hold the cone up to place it on top of the square. And you can change the size of that. So you can be creative and play around. There's so many different shapes on the right-hand side that you can choose from, and you can change them as you'd like. I'm going to delete both of these objects. I'm going to click on them, hit the backspace button, click, hit the backspace button. My garden stake, I kind of like the oval shape, so I'm going to pick the circle. It's kind of a cylinder. I'm going to put that on the plane. I'm going to take one of these diagonal white box buttons, click and hold it to make an oval shape. I found that about 75 millimeters wide, so that's that top number. Somewhere between 75 and 80 is a good size. But you can play around depending on the shape too. And if it's too big or too small, or like if the details are too small, we will play around with it and we'll adjust it so that it prints out correctly. So we'll adjust it later. So I like that size for the oval. I am going to make it a little bit thinner. So this white box at the top, if you hold that down, it'll minimize the thickness of it. So now it says it's 8. I'm going to try to go, I think 1 or 2 is a pretty good spot because you don't want it too thick. It'll be too clunky for the garden stake. All of the kits, when you pick up your different stakes, it will come with a popsicle stick. You have 2 options. I'll show you how to create a slot. That way you can slide the popsicle stick through it. Or if you don't want to make the slot, you can also just glue the sign onto the popsicle stick as well. So that's up to you. So I like the shape of this as the base of the sign. I'm going to add some text. So on the right-hand side, you'll see in red the text. You're going to hold that and drag it over and place it on top of the base. Don't worry about the colors of the different symbols, the shapes. When you print it out, it'll print out in the color that you chose. So like I chose blue, so mine will print out blue. So the text will come up with a text box. If you click where it says text, you can change what you want it to say. So I'm going to change mine to peas. You can also change the font. So I'm going to change this to sans. And then you can change the size using the scale. I'll kind of guide you. I think like 4 or 5 is probably a good height. That way it kind of pops off of the base a little bit. And you can also use whiteout or like a black permanent marker to draw over the letters if you want it to pop even more, because otherwise it'll just all be blue. So you can play around with that. Or you can also take the white square and you can move it up and down as well. So whichever you prefer. I'm going to move this to the center of the design. And then you can decorate it however you'd like. You can add different objects kind of sticking off the sides. I created some with like a tomato or a pepper sticking off on the corner. You can put the design right on the base, so it's not sticking out at all. Just like the text, it'll kind of stick up so you can still see it, and you can adjust, to be as big or as small as you'd like. You can also create the base in the shape of a vegetable. So I can show you, for example, on the right-hand side, there's a scribble, it's called. If you select that and pull it over, I just pulled it over to a blank spot on the work plane. Say I want mine to look like a tomato. You can kind of draw out a tomato. And then you'll want to fill it in. When it's hollow, it doesn't really print out quite right. So I'm just going to do a quick leaves. And then you can add, some vines. Just a quick example. But then I would fill it in as well. I just don't want to take too much time showing you. So we'll just pretend like that's filled in. So once you hit done, it'll be on the work plane, and then you can minimize the thickness, and then you can change the size. So say I want it to look a little more wide, so I can put text in there. You can put the text inside. So that's just an example of how you can make the entire steak to look like a shape. For the peas, say you want to add like a flower to your steak. Draw a quick flower. You could, like I said, I've made little tomatoes, little peppers to go on there as well. So here's my flower. I'm going to go back to the home so that way it's centered again. So the flower, you can minimize the thickness again. You can make it smaller or bigger. If you want to have it going off of a corner, or if you want to make it really small, you could have it on the base itself. So just some examples. If you would like to put slots on the sign, that way the popsicle stick can just slide right through, what you'll need to do is on the right side, there's two shapes that have lines through them. These will create a hole. So if you're making like a necklace, you can put a hole at the top or tag or something. But for this one, I'll delete my cylinder. I'm going to use the box shape. I'm going to drag it over. And you'll want to make it a little bit smaller and wider so that it's a slot for the popsicle stick. So I found that about 3 millimeters tall, 2 to 3. I wouldn't go bigger than 3 or it'll be too loose for the popsicle stick. And about 22, 25 millimeters long. That's 25 by 3. So I'll get a little bit closer so you can see. So I like that size. You're going to need one at the top and the bottom. So you can either copy it by hitting at the top left side of the screen, or you can hold down your control key and hit C, and it'll copy it. And then if you hold down and hit control V, it'll paste it. So you'll see a duplicate of that shape you created. And it'll kind of give you a guide to show you if it's in line with the other shape. So I'm going to drag it right on top. I'm going to just go to a top view so I can see a little bit better, and I'll drag that down. So it looks how you want it to look. So again, you can decorate this however you'd like. You can be creative and create different shapes and designs. This is just a really basic one just to kind of show you how it looks. But you can, design them however you like for your garden. Once you're done, you'll want to take the mouse and drag it over the design and then release the mouse. It'll select everything in that area. And then on the top right, you'll see a symbol, looks like a square and a circle. It says group. So you'll want to select that. It'll group it together. And then you'll kind of see what it looks like when it's done. So once, your done being creative and, designing all of your different signs, you can just leave them here. It'll save it automatically. Like I said, make sure that it's labeled correctly on the top left. And then I will take a look at all of the designs on Monday, March 28th, and we will print the designs that are there. And like I said, we'll adjust if they're too big or too small. If you need more time, just email me, let me know. But otherwise, we'll go ahead and start printing the designs on March 28th. So even if you weren't, able to participate in the live presentation of this program, you're welcome to still create a garden stake, and we'll print that out for you. Give us about 2 weeks to finish printing the stakes, and then they will be available at the circulation desk or the pickup window. So please let me know if you have any questions, but otherwise, happy making.